Kshama Sawant announced in January that she would be retiring from Seattle's city council at the end of her term in order to form a national labor movement called Workers Strike Back. Yesterday, Saturday, March 4th, the organization had formal launch events in Seattle, Philadelphia, the Bay Area of California, Pittsburgh, and Durham, North Carolina. Minneapolis had their launch event today on Sunday, and then there are launch events scheduled for Boston, Chicago, and Madison, Wisconsin over the next 2 weeks. Kshama herself spoke for about 20 minutes at the Seattle events where Nick Cruz from RBN also spoke. We don't have that video yet to show you guys, but I clipped here the last few minutes of Kshama's speech, which speaks to a lot of the themes that we've been talking about for the past several months here on the show. I thought this was really great and really worth listening to. So it's about 3.5 minutes. We're going to play this uninterrupted, and then we'll pick it up after. But here's Kshama Sawant at yesterday's Workers Strike Back launch event.
Bosses desperately want us to be divided. Our strength is building the maximum unity we can around a fighting program. Not unity with the bosses and their political representatives, but unity on a working class basis. Some of the carpenter union rank and file who went on that courageous strike in 2021 were two-time Trump voters. We know there is disagreement on a number of political issues, and we need...
Sorry, I said I wasn't going to cut it off. She's referring to a carpenter strike in Seattle that happened 2 years ago. That Socialist Alternative joined them on the picket line. That's what she's talking about here.
We know there is disagreement on a number of political issues, and we need to honestly debate them. But these workers welcome our Socialist Council Office and Socialist Alternative. We were the only force who stood with them while they were being abandoned both by their union leaders and by every single Democrat in the region. The residents of East Palestine who are being radicalized by this disaster are mostly Trump voters. Yet many of them are furious at both parties and saw Trump's bottled water delivery as an empty gesture. At the Amazon Air Hub, there are also lots of Trump voters. But we have agreement on something crucial. They damn well want a union and are prepared to fight for it. Yeah. Capitalism relies on a divide and rule strategy in order for a tiny minority at the top to exploit the billions of working people on the planet. They need to divide us in every possible way and disorient us. We cannot let them. As a socialist, I fight for reforms because I think we must fight for every real gain we can for working people because our lives depend on it. But at the same time, we should not have any illusions. As hard as we will need to fight to win any reform under capitalism, all the reforms added up together will not be enough. We need a fundamentally different kind of society, a socialist society based on solidarity and equality, run by and for working people, not the billionaires. Yeah. The capitalist system is owned by the bosses. It is inherently unequal and oppressive, and it is completely unsustainable. But I also want to be clear that you don't need to agree with me or Socialist Alternative about socialism in order to get involved with Workers Strike Back. Workers Strike Back is not a socialist organization. It is a movement of working people organizing around a fighting strategy to win the things we need. We have a lot of work in front of us. Millions of working people in this country are looking to fight back and are looking for the leadership. We need to take that and all the energy we have seen this afternoon in this room and turn it towards this historic fight, solidarity.
All right. There you have it. Now, I guarantee you, folks, Worker Strike Back is not going to have a political party organized within the next few months. They're not going to have a candidate for president in 2024, right? But I also can guarantee you...
ever, I mean, are they even envisioning being a political party?
Well, they said they need a new party and that they may try to form one out of a labor movement, right? Just as a lot of left parties have been formed out of labor movements, right? But the point I want to make here is that the people who are deluding themselves into thinking that Marianne Williamson is going to win this David versus Goliath battle and think that they are the ones who are serious about doing something in 2024, they are going to have far less to show for their efforts come next summer than Worker Strike Back. I guarantee you, Worker Strike Back is going to have a very long list of accomplishments that they can be very, very proud of in a year and a half. And the Marianne Williamson campaign is going to have nothing but a reluctant endorsement to Joe Biden. Yep. That's the way this is going to work out. And so who's giving in to despair here? This is the point I want to make, because they launched this on the same day that Marianne launched her campaign, and there's been some argument about this in the online left, that the people who aren't signing up for the Marianne thing are giving up. Nick Cruz, obviously not a Marianne fan, he spoke at that event that day. We're not the ones who are despairing. We're the ones being realistic about the presidential politics of 2024 and choosing to do something different. You invest in Worker Strike Back, they're not going to win the presidency. They're not going to overturn the system in a year. But I guarantee you, they are going to have a lot to be proud of in a very short period of time, because Kshama is not just a fighter. She's a winner. She's a proven winner. Renters' rights, Amazon tax. She won the $15 minimum wage before the Bernie campaign was even a thing. She won that in 2013 into 2014. It wasn't even a pipe dream. Bernie hadn't even platformed that nationally yet, and she won it. So they're on to something there. Is it going to shock the world? We don't know. But you know what? The best you can hope for at this point is to lock arms with real fighters and real winners like Kshama and everyone there, and do the best you can. Throw as much as you can at it. Fight as hard as you can. And you know going in, Kshama Sawant is going to fight tooth and nail every single day and never let up and never sell out. And so she's got my money.
Well, that's it. And we've gotten in the video we did covering her speech, you've got some people in the comments section asking what we support and what we believe in. And
well, there you have it. I just showed it. We just showed it to you.
Yeah, I don't even understand why you'd ask the question, because you can go into our interviews. You can see who we've talked to. I mean, from the beginning, we've been talking to people like Chris Smalls. When the railroad workers had an action at Grand Central, we got their contacts and put them on the show. So that's where we are. We no longer believe that you can reform the Democratic Party from the inside. That if what you really care about is policy, even if you feel that, well, but you have to enact the policy through politics, well, the best way you're going to do that would be by scaring the piss out of them with an outside movement. In fact, that's the only chance, because once you're inside, they own you. That's right. What the squad has proved to us now. They're much more scared of you when they don't hold anything over you. As soon as you're on the inside like that, they've got you by the balls. They got you. That now Nancy is not the person whose office you're protesting in. Now she's Mama Bear when you go on The View, right? Now you have to win the kind of people who vote in Democratic primaries over. You got to win over the kind of people who actually run that party, right? So really, if you want people who are going to stick to their guns, who are really going to fight for policy, which is really what it comes down to. And honestly, I don't give a shit if Republicans enact a policy that I'm fighting for or Democrats enact the policy. I don't care about that. So as soon as you start getting into I'm a Democrat, you're closing off another avenue, right? I mean with the fact that the people who can benefit most from policies that benefit the working class are now in the Republican Party, well, it's only a short step from there to say, hey, you know what? being part of an organization that supports those working people and marches with those working people, well, if you want to inject working class politics into American politics, you need to go to those people. And those people, I wrote that article about this a while ago, and it's becoming less and less of a joke than it was when I wrote it.
Right.
Well, I wrote a whole article a few years ago about how maybe we'd be better off trying to take over the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. Well, look, the people in the Democratic Party don't really have an investment in unions, in labor issues. They're not labor. They might become labor.
Right.
This is something, if I hadn't been in India, we would have covered this already. The way that these people who are getting fired from these tech companies are getting covered by the media, who never express this level of sympathy and outrage for people who got laid off from a factory, tells you everything you need to know about that class. They don't care about our interests. Their organ of expressing their elite class perspective is the Democratic Party, and it has no real place for you as a worker with working class concerns in politics. The best you're going to do is pressure them from the outside. So what Sawant is doing here is giving us an opportunity to build an outside labor movement. And to me, it doesn't really matter if it becomes a political party. Maybe it's better if it doesn't. Right. Maybe it's better if it's just an organization that can call 1 million workers to march on Washington. Maybe that it's better that it just stays that, because then you never have to sit there and play nice with the ladies on The View.
Exactly. Or to organize strikes, right? Or, whatever.
Right.
There's a ton of things
Maybe
you can do.
Maybe it can build into something that can create a yellow vest movement.
Exactly.
That's what we need. We need that a lot more than we need a power crystal wielding half-ass prosperity gospel guru to say to tell Joe Biden he sucks. And not even directly, but in a roundabout kind of way. She doesn't upset anyone on the cocktail circuit.
Exactly. And what Kshama said there was just really powerful about how, she makes no apologies about being a Marxist. She's a socialist, but she says, you don't have to be a socialist to join us. And she said, we were the only political organization that joined those carpenters when they were on strike. And I remember talking about that with her campaign manager. We interviewed Brian Coloris, who was Kshama's campaign manager in 2018. And then he was working on the campaign beating back the recall, which she beat back by only a few hundred votes. It was a very, very tight race. But he talked about the experience they had picketing with those guys, a lot of whom were Trump voters. And they told them when they got there, I remember he says, we told them we're not going to tolerate any of this immigrant bashing bullshit on the line. You start talking any of that shit, we're out. And guess what? They didn't talk any of that shit because they were grateful to have them there, right? So you wield power by showing up for people. People want allies, right? People ultimately put their interests above any ideology. So you really want to make inroads with people, show up for them. Don't write them off and say, these are bigots, I'm not picketing. Show up and say, listen, you start any of that shit, we're gone. And you don't want us gone. You need us here. That's how you do it. That's what I mean. These guys, Kshama and her team have real killer instincts. They are pros. They are competent. It ain't easy to beat back a recall funded by the Democratic Party machinery and Amazon, right? I mean, it ain't easy to beat these people, and she does time after time.
Winner.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you need. You need winners, because frankly, this movement has too many losers. It has too many losers. It has too many navel-gazing, self-hate neurotics.
Right. Yeah.
And that is not how I read her. And frankly, it's probably not surprising that a country that has statues of Gandhi everywhere would produce an uncompromising figure like that.
Yeah, she was born in India.
It is the one thing as far as I can see that everyone in this country agrees on. Gandhi is worshipped here. He's you go to these small towns, there's a statue of him in the center of town. Right? Everywhere there are statues of Gandhi. And hey, that sets an example. That sets an example. Because he's bigger than a historical figure here. He's a moral ideal. And so Sawant comes from a country where that's the moral ideal that was held before her. This ideal that people, when they join together, can overthrow the powerful, can overthrow an empire. And they don't have to do it with fists and rocks, that they can do it with the power of their ideas and their collective action.
Please clap.